All right, Eamon, well, thanks again for having us again. We're just going to take a quick look back on last week because there was a few shocks in store for us. We would have had the full if it hadn't been for the sending off. What do you think?
Yeah, we would have got our treble up. We would have been very likely to get it up.
Yeah.
We had 3 draws. 2 of them came up. So anyone who was doing, as I advised, doubles, 3 doubles and the treble would have got their money back and made a bit of profit. But the Manchester City-Manchester United game was ruined by the sending off of Vincent Kompany, who's City's captain, after 12 minutes. It was a terrible decision. It was insane. But it spoiled the match as a spectacle in some ways. It certainly ruined City's chances, and it gave United a huge advantage, which they managed to cling on to just about. I think that match would have highly likely been a draw, and we'd have got our 3 draws up. But we've spoken before in the last few weeks about the perils of betting on soccer matches, and one of them is bad refereeing decisions. And this goes back a long time, years now. Very often the biggest games place the referees under the most pressure, and they're not able to cope with it. And so you find games, Manchester United, say at Chelsea last year, it was a notable example. Manchester United won the game, but it was a crazy refereeing decision that cost Chelsea. So almost all the big games you watch have a controversial or wrong decision that determines the outcome or the result of the game. So if you're betting on football, it can be disastrous, that kind of thing. And last Sunday, the Manchester City-Manchester United derby game was a good example of that. So you have to factor it in to your thinking process, particularly if you're taking short prices. You know, a lot of these matches, the fancy teams are odds on, so you have to really be careful with your sports betting, and last week was a very good example of that.
Yeah, and then it's been a trend over the last couple of days then with Mancini and last night. And
yeah, I think what happened with Manchester City's game against Liverpool is that Johnson, the Liverpool player, did exactly what Kompany did on Sunday, a 2-footed tackle, only Kompany made no contact with his opponent. Johnson actually did, but the referee took no action at all, didn't even give him a yellow card. I don't think he even gave a free kick. So there's a huge inconsistency in interpretation of the laws by referees.
Unpredictable.
Yeah, and it wouldn't be acceptable in any other sport. In cricket, you have Hawkeye, which is in rugby union you have, and rugby league, you've got the video referee. And in American football, you've got the option of a video review of a controversial incident.
There and then,
And until soccer introduces that, cheating is going to continue. It is difficult for referees because so much simulation goes on. So many players are diving in the penalty area trying to get a penalty. They're falling down when they haven't been touched. It's impossible in real time for a referee to detect that. So if he can't detect it, he's always liable to make a very big mistake. Now, if the players know he can't detect it, they're going to go on cheating. So it's a spiral, it's a vicious circle, a spiral downwards in the game. Cheats prosper. That's the message. So the more cheats prosper, the worse the game is for players and supporters, and the harder it is to back winners.
So what was your highlight then of last weekend, aside from the bad ones?
Well, I think the highlight, I suppose, the City United game was very exciting in the finish because City came back, scored 2 goals in the second half. But again, Manchester United had legitimate claims for a penalty dismissed. I think the highlight of the present Premier League has been the start Martin O'Neill has made, one of the highlights at Sunderland. He's really turned the club around. They've got some amazing results since he's been there, and they're going to be featuring one of my bets this week. Really last week was FA Cup weekend, and I suppose the big game was Manchester United versus City, and the League Cup semi-final on Wednesday night between Liverpool and Manchester City was a fascinating match in its own right.
So then on this coming weekend and the week ahead, what would be your biggest bets for us?
I have 2 bets this week. The first is 3 draws again. The first one that I fancy might be a draw is Aston Villa and Everton. 2 very dour, dogged sides that sort of slug it out, don't play great football. Everton are having a rough enough season, but they'll go there with the intention of coming away with a point, and I think they've got every chance of doing that. The next may be a surprise, but I think it's worth putting in. Chelsea and Sunderland. Because of Martin O'Neill's good start at Sunderland, I would expect them to be very difficult to beat everywhere. Now they go to Chelsea, who have players away at the African Cup of Nations, most notably Drogba, and I think Chelsea are struggling. So I think Chelsea-Sunderland to be a draw is a reasonable bet.
Okay.
And the third one is Newcastle and QPR. Again, you've got to factor in the African Nations Cup. Djemba Ba, who's been scoring a lot of goals for Newcastle and playing outstandingly well, and Tiote, their other outstanding player. They're both away at the African Cup of Nations, and that creates a big problem for Newcastle, who've done very well this season. The reason I think QPR could get a draw there is they have a new manager, Mark Hughes. They have some good players. Mark Hughes usually sets his sides up very well organised. I think they've got every chance of getting a draw there. Now that will pay about 35 to 1 for the treble, but the doubles will pay 10 to 1. So if you've 3 doubles and a treble, so it's Aston Villa Everton.
Yep.
It's Chelsea Sunderland, and it's Newcastle QPR.
Cool.
Now I've also got a winning treble this week with 3 of the fancy sides in it. It'll pay, maybe for people who like to have a few quid on, it's worth having this bet, I think. It's Liverpool to beat Stoke at Anfield. Tottenham to beat Wolves. Tottenham are flying at the moment. They're at home. It's at White Hart Lane. And Manchester City to beat Wigan. Manchester City are away on Monday night. I think that's a good treble. It might pay 2 to 1, 5 to 2. I think it's a bet well worth having.
Brilliant. Double so. Thanks a million again, and we'll see you next week.